We'll just keep giving little quick summaries every now and then about what street epistemology is. But my understanding is that it's basically a polite conversation, kind of like it's pretty much like an interview where one person is only asking questions of the other person, and from a neutral perspective, just trying to understand what the person believes, why they believe it, and if the reasons they have for holding that belief are good or not. And it's a really a great way of having these conversations without people getting super defensive. It's really collaborative, two people working together to just critically examine any kind of belief. It could be about veganism, it could be about religion or politics.
Sure, I can add just a little bit. I'll try to be quick here. What I think you said was like completely accurate, very good description. I don't have any issues with it. But I just want to add, like, street epistemology is a method of having respectful, confrontational conversations with people about their beliefs, with the goal of helping them examine and reflect on the reliability of their beliefs and methods they use to arrive at them, kind of like you said. The technique involves asking open-ended questions, listening attentively to the responses, and using follow-up questions to encourage critical thinking and self-reflection. SE, street epistemology, can be used to discuss a wide range of topics, including religion, politics, science, societal issues, and any belief a person can hold. And that can include topics related to veganism. So, yeah, that's what we're here to talk about.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's go ahead and get it underway so people can see what street epistemology looks like. So me and Pierce decided beforehand, a claim that I'm going to make is that milk increases the risk of cancer.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Trace, for talking to me about this. I know we kind of talked about something similar quite a few weeks ago now. But I know this came up and we didn't get a chance to really explore it, so I appreciate your willingness to talk to me about it.
Yeah, for sure. And so what people can notice right there is that I'm gonna kind of teach. We can both kind of teach this as we do it in a step by step. That might be helpful for people. The idea right there is that Pierce is building rapport. So asking me how I'm doing, these kinds of things. Making setting a good feel for the conversation to come. And Pierce, I'm gonna quickly post in this vegan stage in the upper right. Everybody should open up the text channel, and I'm gonna post a little picture of like a step by step
It's,
process for what. Yeah, you got it. So I'll also
yeah,
post it, or do you want to post that in the chat for me real quick?
I actually don't have it handy.
Okay,
I
I'll
don't
do
have it
it.
on my
I
screen.
I got it right here. It's a slightly different version, but it looks the same. Okay, so
Yeah,
there you go. So if anybody wants to see exactly, so the first step, of course, is build rapport here. Um, vegan. Wait.
that is a little different.
Vegan stage. Hold on. Are you able to see it in the vegan stage? What I just posted?
I do not see it.
Okay, I think I was in the wrong chat. One second.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. And kaboom. That should do it. There you go. Okay, cool. Okay, so yes, Pierce. Yes, well done with the rapport. All right. And always fun to chat with you as well.
Sweet. And if you could remind me of what the claim is.
Yeah, so milk increases the risk of cancer.
Milk increases the risk of cancer. I'm just writing this down. I like to take notes because otherwise I am all over the place. Okay, so milk increases the risk of cancer. So I guess tell me a little bit more about what exactly this means.
Sure. So, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm actually pretty stupid at science. I'm just some dude on the internet. But what I've done is compiled a list of what the experts are saying, because it'd be bad for me to go talking about why this is when I don't know how the inside of the body works. I barely know how to put my shoes on. So I defer to the experts. And so what I'm gonna do, this will take just about 1 minute to kind of explain like why I came to this conclusion and how, and then you can kind of jump into that. Does that sound good? It'll take about a minute.
Yeah, that sounds good. I
Okay.
guess let's start. How about would it be okay if we just start with the very most important reason to why you came to this conclusion?
Sure, it's
Or
because
is
of
that
the
what you're gonna do?
yeah, it's because of the research that I've done on the issue, looking at peer-reviewed scientific journals um, from the experts who are, registered dietitians or nutritionists, medical doctors, or giant institutions of, experts in that field. So, for example, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is the world's largest organization of food and nutrition experts in the world, and with 100,000 registered dietitians, and so that's a good body of experts to glean from, and they have a position statement about how this is relevant. And that's not just them. That's just one example. But I have study after study after study. I think I've got, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I've got 12 different studies that I want to post in the chat and read out loud real quick for everybody and for you to be aware of. And that's the thing that would take me about a minute. But whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right, so here we go, everybody. Check out the text chat because I'm going to spam it with studies. Here we go. Here's the first 6, I think, give or take. And then I'm gonna read these out loud real quick. The little there's just a one sentence summary that is attached to each link, and so I'll just read those out real quick, in case people can't see it, and just to so we're all clear here. So here's the next 6 or whatever links. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this for everybody, and this will just take about 1 minute. Okay, so milk was associated with increased risk of breast cancer. And this is from PubMed. Next one. 1 cup of milk per day may increase the risk of, or the rate of breast cancer up to 50%. Okay, 1 cup of milk, I'm going to read that again. 1 cup of milk per day may increase the rate of breast cancer by up to 50%. Consuming a 1/4 to a 1/3 cup of dairy milk per day was associated with an increased risk of breast cancer of 30%. Drinking 2 to 3 cups per day increased the risk to 70 and 80%. That's from Science Daily. Next one, higher intakes of dairy milk were associated with greater risk of breast cancer. Full fat and reduced fat milks produced similar results. Next, high milk consumption, especially high whole fat milk, was associated with higher cancer mortality. Mortality means death, so higher cancer death rate. So this is the next one. High intake of dairy products such as milk increased the risk of developing prostate cancer. So the other ones we're talking about breast cancer and then general cancer, and now we're talking about prostate cancer. Next one, higher intake of skim/low fat milk was associated with greater risk of non-aggressive prostate cancer. Whole milk was consistently associated with a higher incidence of fatal prostate cancer. Next one, high intakes of dairy milk, of dairy products, milk, low-fat milk, cheese, and total dietary and dairy calcium, but not supplemental or non-dairy calcium like plant calcium. So those dairy calciums may increase total prostate cancer risk. Next one, higher amounts of higher amounts of plant-based foods may be associated with decreased prostate cancer risk, and consumption of higher amounts of dairy products may be associated with increased prostate cancer risk. Next, and we're almost done, just 4 more. Men who already had prostate cancer and consumed 3 servings per day of dairy products had a 76% higher risk of total mortality death and a 141% higher risk of prostate cancer specific mortality compared to men who consumed less than 1 serving per day. Next one, whole milk intake might contribute to a higher ovarian cancer risk. Next, high childhood total dairy intake was associated with a near tripling the odds of colorectal cancer. And then here's the last one. The collected data from other researchers and our own data are indicating that the presence of steroid hormones in dairy products could be counted as an important risk factor for various cancers in humans. This could be considered as a remarkable concern for consumers, producers, and public health authorities. Thank you for listening to all that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. Glad to listen. So I guess the overarching reason that I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and what I'm doing there is I'm just repeating back his reason for belief, clarifying that I understand correctly for those who are listening here.
Cool.
Uh, so what I'm hearing is it's just kind of all about the conclusions of the study, and that's like the main factor for your belief.
Yeah, pretty much. I need. Yeah, I would say so. Pretty much. Yeah, and go ahead. Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to do now is find the level of confidence. How confident are you that milk increases the risk of cancer?
I would say I got to be about 95% sounds reasonable because I I think a high level of confidence is warranted because there's a lot of these studies. And as I was looking through, I don't think I recall finding, an ample amount, like a large amount of counter studies saying the opposite. This seems to be something that kept coming up in the data. And, but I'm not all the way up to 100% confidence that this is that milk increases the risk of cancer. I'm not at 100% because I try not to be at 100% for anything because I always like to be at least open-minded that 1%, to because I've been wrong 1,000 times in my life, and maybe this is another time, and also because and I'm giving it more than just 1% this time because science is an issue, like I said, that I'm not an expert at, and so and I haven't even read all of these studies in depth, right? Because I can't understand a lot of what they're saying, because it's way out of my league, which is why we don't want to rely on me or just any other random person on the internet making health and nutrition claims. We want to look at what the experts are saying.
Gotcha. Okay. You mentioned that there was some studies that may have came to a different conclusion, but there's not as many that came to the opposing conclusion, the opposite conclusion. I
If
guess
memory
why?
Well, before you finish, let me just clarify that I'm not sure with milk if that's the case or not. Like if there were counter studies, or not, because I did, this like took months, and I did like dairy and meat, like red meat and chicken, and all these different things, and compiled a list of 220 sources like this for all those different things regarding heart disease and cancer and diabetes, etc. So it's all kind of a wash right now, but go ahead with your question if you remember it.
Sure. Sure. If you were to come across a study that came to a different conclusion, came to a conclusion that milk didn't increase the risk of cancer, it was the same as non-dairy drinkers.
Okay.
I guess would your confidence change at all?
Maybe a little bit, but I would need to learn more about this study. So I would need to see the methodology and compare that methodology to the methodology of the current data that we have from these other studies. Because because there are different methods in science. There. I'll post in the chat, in the text chat. Everybody should look at this because this is really important. Um, the hierarchy of scientific evidence. So make sure this pops up. Okay, there you go. So basically, what this is saying is that at the bottom level of this triangle, right at the bottom, the foundation level is the weakest kinds of methods, the weakest evidence. but at the top of the triangle is the strongest evidence. Okay, and that so at the bottom, the going to the top, I'll read these aloud real quick. So not reliable evidence is things, or at least not comparatively, is things like case reports, opinion papers, and letters. That's not as strong as things like in vitro studies and other kinds of trials. I'm not going to read that one because I don't support animal trials. But anyways, cross-sectional studies, followed by case control studies, followed by cohort studies. So cohort studies are stronger than case control or cross-sectional studies. And then you can have higher than that is randomized controlled trials. And then the highest form is meta-analyses and systematic reviews. And so if we have, if what you're saying, for example, to steelman what could convince me to change my position, what it would need to be would be something like a new meta analysis comes out, such so that it's the strongest form of evidence, because a meta analysis looks at a bunch of different studies instead of just being one study that looks, and so if a new meta analysis came out that had just the best methods and population, and everything about it, compared to the links that I have. Because I can't even remember right now what methodologies those all used. If they were, some of them might be meta analyses, some of them might be case control or cross sectional, or so I'm not sure. So we would have to basically have the studies battle it out, so I would take my studies and compare them to this study, and further though, I would have to get somebody smarter than me at this stuff. I would want a dietitian, a registered dietitian, to go through this evidence and do a proper comparative analysis, because I'm not able to do that. I might be able to, at a glimpse, just based on a little bit, like in the first page of a paper, like you can see the summary, conclusion, and you can also see the methodology, like what type of study it is, they'll say, so.
Okay. I think I got what you're saying. So it sounds like you're saying that in order for you to change your confidence, reduce your confidence from 95%, it would take a meta-analysis, which is like a analysis of a bunch of different studies, and they would have to come to a different conclusion than milk increases the risk of cancer, so maybe it would decrease or not do anything. But I guess I'm wondering, would it also take like the same amount of studies that are using reliable methods
That's a great
come to a different conclusion?
that's a great question.
Would that also do it for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if instead of a meta-analysis, if let's say I posted like 12 links, right? Let's say that a new 12 links, come out, and those links to these, these peer-reviewed scientific literature, let's say that those methodologies are exactly the same as the methodologies used in the links that I provided. Well, then it would have just balanced it out for me. And at that point, I would not make this claim anymore, that milk increases the risk of cancer, because I would have equally reliable competing data, which would have to, it'd be hard to explain how that happened. I don't think that actually could happen, but hypothetically, if it did, that would be something that would decrease my confidence significantly. And just to be clear, we should probably wrap up with me for now, so that we can bring, or not right now, but like if you want to spend another minute or two on this, and then we'll try to get somebody else up on the stage. So everybody, be thinking of a claim you have and raise your hand.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say the same thing. I think
Cool.
we're coming to a conclusion here. I guess, like the final question here, I'll use my, what can I do? Can I use my thought experiment? Does that apply to this situation?
I don't know what your thought experiment is.
But I just like using it, so I'm gonna use it anyway.
Let's do it.
Even though it really doesn't apply here.
Okay.
All right, so we got Alan the alien. He lands a spaceship right next to you. He knows nothing about Earth or any foods or drinks or dairy products or anything. He walks out of his spaceship, and he wants to know. He finds this thing called milk, and maybe he reads something from a newspaper or something that says milk increases the risk of cancer, and he wants to know if that's true. How does Alan determine if milk increases the risk of cancer?
Well, according to the, like I would follow the hierarchy of scientific evidence as I posted earlier. Look up the data. Specifically, if y'all in the audience ever want to do research like this to find out this kind of information, what you can just do is a normal Google search of, something like, does milk cause cancer? But before you hit enter, right, you want to type PubMed. So, does milk cause cancer? PubMed, and that will narrow your Google search down to these peer-reviewed scientific journals. So, PubMed after your search. But basically, what he shouldn't do is what is on the other side of this screen of this meme I posted. So, not scientific evidence is YouTube videos, personal anecdotes, little stories from people, right? Your gut feelings, parental instincts, some guy websites like Natural News, InfoWars with Alex Jones, Natural Health Warriors, Collective Evolution, Green Med Info, etc. So just be careful. You want to vet your sources and make sure they're reliable. Another thing you can do is, if you've got a source like some website or some like academic institution, like I said, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, you can versus InfoWars, right? What you can do is a Google search of, like, is InfoWars credible or reliable, right? Is InfoWars reliable? Or you could do like InfoWars debunked and see what happens. Similarly, you can do is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics reliable, and that'll help.
So here's the claim. I'm going to put it as concisely as possible. And I don't know that I'm this, so I'm kind of excited to see how this process goes. So my claim is that crime, let's say crime, broadly violence, but let's use crime. Crime is perpetrated by humans only because of that human's environment.
Okay. And before I let Pierce jump in with all this, I just want to give a quick summary of street epistemology again, in case there's new people, or just to cement this into everybody's brain. My quick summary of street epistemology, SE, is basically just a polite conversation, like an interview, where one person only asks questions of the other person, and it's from a neutral perspective, and is basically just asking what someone believes, why they believe it, and if the reasons they have for believing it are good reasons or not. So basically, just a collective, collaborative work to examine a belief.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So cool. James, just to kind of restate your claim, you can tell me if this is what you believe or not. You said crime, kind of like maybe violent crime. Is that a fair statement to say?
Well, in my mind, this even applies to violence towards non-human animals. It's a pretty broad claim, but I want to make it approachable for your purposes, whatever that means. So if the full broad claim works better for you, let's go with it. If focusing on violent crime works better for you, let's go with that.
Well, I would say what do you believe more strongly?
I have to say that I believe in the broadest version the most strongly, right? Because it applies to so many things. In my experience, it's a pretty radical. I think most people often, or I don't bring this up, is what I mean. Most people often don't want to hear this or discuss it, or they might feel uncomfortable considering the full. But let's try it broad. So, violence in general, and then I'm gonna let you recap it, and then I guess I'll clarify anything.
Okay. violence is perpetrated by humans because of their environment. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I think maybe we have. I wonder if there's any words that might be confusing that we might be talking past
Probably.
each other. When you say violence, you mean
Uh-huh.
like harming? You just mean like hurting other things, hurting other.
Yeah, I specifically mean harm that could be preventable um, from the perspective of a sapient individual. So, like, um, I'm specifically talking about situations in which, but because there are survival situations, right? And there's times at which humans act on a basis similar to non-human animals, where um, we've simply done what keeps us alive. I don't know that I would characterize that as violence the same way that I would something like doing physical harm, but also just something like stealing food or even stealing valuables.
Okay, gotcha. And perpetrated? What do you mean by that word?
I mean, that. Uh, should I define it or
Sure. Any way you can explain it.
done by, essentially? So,
Okay. Done by maybe repeated, maybe in a. Is that kind of what you mean too, or not really?
not
Like a
really. Yeah,
continuation?
just
No. Okay.
just
Done
done
by. Okay.
done by. Yeah, like when a human does it.
When a human does it. Okay. Cool. Cool. I think we are on the same page. So awesome. And can I get a sense of your confidence? How sure are you that this is the case?
Well, I don't think it's. Once again, I think that there are some really interesting, exceptional cases that wouldn't necessarily there's some gray areas. So I'm gonna say 80. I'm 80% sure. I also don't have so much. Like I don't necessarily have a compiled list of studies or other um, like peer-reviewed evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that something of the sort does exist. So I'm somewhere around 80 on this.
Okay. Gotcha. And what brings you to this 80% confidence level?
So a lot of it has to do with my lived experiences, but also the general understanding of humanity that I've acquired after reading a few sociology books. That's what I've got.
Okay, no problem. Which one of these makes up the biggest part of your confidence?
Probably the New Jim Crow. If anyone's familiar with that book, I believe it's Michelle Alexander. It's a book about the U.S. incarceration system.
I was actually meant. Sorry, it was an unclear question by my part. I meant regarding lived experiences and sociology books. Which one is more important? Which one?
Oh, of those two,
Yeah.
which one is more important? Which one is more important? It's funny. Well, I think that the idea, the books are responsible for me having the idea, and then I think that I've confirmed that idea through my lived experiences, which could be confirmation bias. So, definitely the books of those two
Okay.
things. I'm also only one person, and I've only had so many experiences versus these few books that do cover a much larger breadth and do include studies, though I can't tell you exactly which ones, and I can't recall all the claims, right? But I'd say it has to be the books of those two.
Okay. Awesome. You're kind of doing SE on yourself, and I can just kind of sit back and relax. So it's awesome. So with regards to these sociology books, I guess what's if there was another book regarding the topic of sociology, and it claimed that the environment had very little to do with the actions of humans regarding, violence and harm. I guess, would that change your confidence?
Yes, it definitely would. Well, and so there are cases, and so there are things like that exist here and there, and that's what I'd refer to as some of the gray area. So if I may bring it up, actually, like
Sure.
for example, there are people who, in the past, the terms used might have included sociopath or psychopath. I know that the terms are not the same, and those are considered outdated terms. I'm actually not sure what current terms are used by the relevant experts at the moment. Somebody might know. Essentially, there are people who might commit violence, and it's not really attributable to factors of their environment. It's not really attributable to their economic status. It's not attributable to their upbringing. As far as we know, we have every reason to believe that they would have been someone who would function in our society without choosing to perpetrate acts of violence on any scale, from the most petty, least harmful ones to the most atrocious, heinous, violent acts. And so those cases do exist, and they're at least often casually brought up as a general contradiction to this idea that I have, that humans only act this way because of environmental factors. But I would argue that those people are can often be considered neurodivergent. So therefore, functioning in a way different from the majority of other humans, or at least what I believe to be a base set of traits that humans tend to have, as per my experience and as per the grounds of this belief.
Okay.
That's a big word salad.
I don't know. I think it made sense to me.
Basically,
It's
there are
interesting.
cases, and I think they don't really count because I think that the people
So,
in those cases need different considerations.
gotcha. Okay.
And
I guess
ultimately,
if
they
there-
need catered environments. But go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So, I guess I'm wondering if there was another book that went really deep into sociology, and it showed you a bunch of different methods or reasons as to why people can be violent and harm other things and yada yada, right? And it had nothing to do with their environment. It had all these other reasons.
Yeah,
Would that change your confidence?
absolutely. It might change it all the way around.
Oh, okay.
Well, if it was one book, it depends on if I felt like the book was based on the same level of scrutiny and research that one specifically and a couple others that I've read are, right? So if it was truly an equal to the information I've seen, I don't know that it would be truly an equal on its face. I'd have to look into it, right? And
I'm
at the
trying to wrap
time,
up on that.
yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna say we're gonna wrap up in about 5 minutes here. I'm looking at my clock here.
Great.
I guess with regards to like the book, I forgot what book you mentioned, but that book versus this other hypothetical book that I just pulled out of thin air. What would be what methodology do you think would be the best, the most reliable to determine the truth about your claim about violence is perpetrated by humans because of their environment?
Well, it's a tricky thing, right? It's not something that we can have just a simple study on, maybe. Like, and I believe that there are, so what in this book that I read, the basis of the subject of discussion is largely like statistics and demographics of prison populations, and small studies done on those populations, and also historical context. So the thing is, and the history of violence in humanity is of eons and ongoing. So,
Right.
so that's a really good question in this case. One that is hard for me to answer. You know, how do we determine this for real? How can we actually test it? And I think for me, the best way for me to test it throughout the rest of my lifetime, because I think that's the best I can do, is to try to improve the environments of myself and the humans around me, and at least see anecdotally if that has an effect. That's my current approach. I don't know if it's that good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If you were to have unlimited resources, you can, do anything within laws of physics.
Okay, now we're
And
talking.
you were to determine, you were gonna try to determine whether this claim, violence is perpetrated by humans because of their environment, is true or not. How would you go about doing that?
Okay, so then I would essentially make colonies of people, probably with their consent. I get consenting adults who did not know the subject of study. I would make some massive colonies for a set period of time, like 2 years maybe. I'm not sure. I'd also get consultation on this. I would seek out criminologists and all the other relevant experts to devise the study. But this is what I'm envisioning: make these big colonies with a control group as well, at least, if not several. And we test it. We control the environments. And by environment, I mean a lot of factors. I mean access to resources mostly. But I also mean like social structure and the freedom of social structure. Some I would impose a really strict hierarchy of power. Some I would impose controls to prevent hierarchies from developing. So, yeah, that's my answer. Is that a clear enough answer?
Yeah, I think that you were very, very clear, and it actually seems like you've thought about that before. So, that was kind of impressive, honestly.
Well, it's kind of what like
I-
cities are. It's what cities do on a much messier level.
Messier, uncontrolled kind of a way. Yeah, okay, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm just about wrapping up here. I don't want to take too much more time. But have I gotten you to reflect on the quality of the reasons for your belief?
Yes, I'd like to read more books.
Okay.
And I'd like to see if there's any books that are claiming to disprove it, because that's where I realize that I don't know if anybody's made a good claim against it, and I should know that.
Okay, so it might be worth looking into if there's anybody who holds an opposing viewpoint and see what methods they've used to determine their confidence.
Right, on a sociological level, because people have made the claim philosophically over and over, but in terms of like, meeting that level, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So I don't have any more questions for you, but if you have any questions for me, I will let you ask all you want.
I mean, is it appropriate to ask if you think that if you generally agree, like, do you have a bias to agreeing with this statement?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, but probably on a much, much, much lower confidence level. I haven't really thought about it much at all, so yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. All right, cool. Thank you for for having that conversation with me. I think we got someone else with their hand up, so we'll bring them up on board. Chase, did you want? I don't think anybody.
Yeah.
Really, well, maybe a couple people new have joined. Do you want to go over your little spiel?
Okay, so street epistemology (SE) is a polite way of having a conversation where one person is only asking questions, basically interviewing the other person, and from a neutral position, and just trying to help them examine what they believe, why they believe it, and if the reasons they have for believing it are reliable or not. And I think we can use it in we can use street epistemology in our vegan activism. And I'll during the next chat or the next talk between these two people, keep an eye on the chat, because I'm going to post a YouTube video of a vegan activist doing street epistemology in public, and about whether or not it's wrong to eat animals. So it's really cool. Some of you in the audience have now seen me run street epistemology, and you've seen Pierce run it on two very different claims. And so you can see everybody's got their own style, their own way of talking, their own way of building rapport, and things like that. But generally speaking, you'll notice that at no point did Pierce or me tell our opinions, really, as far as like the truth of the matter or not. Sometimes I would say things like, oh, okay, I understand now what you're saying, which isn't to say necessarily that I agree or disagree, right? I'm trying to stay neutral so that you don't really necessarily know. I did come up with that example to kind of clarify what Taryn was saying, and to make sure we were on the same page, and they agreed with me, so that was good. And maybe that was a little bit of signaling from me that I was, at least understanding and maybe agreeing, it probably looked like I was probably agreeing, though. So, I might have betrayed my neutrality a little bit, but it might have been worthwhile just to keep rapport high and to fully examine their claim.
Yeah, sure. So the outsider test is basically where you give an example of someone who, hypothetical person usually, but usually it's based in reality. So you have someone with comes to a different conclusion, and then uses the same reasons that your interlocutor, the person you're talking to, has used. So the common example is, like, let's say you're talking to someone who believes the Christian God is the one and true God, and they have used faith to determine that this is the case. You might use a Hindu as for the outsider test. You might say, if a Hindu uses faith to determine that there are multiple gods, are true, the several true gods, and has used faith to determine that to be the case. Does that mean that can faith still be a reliable method to determine what is true?
Awesome. Yeah, the outsider test is really, really great. I use it a lot in a lot of different types of conversations, like religious conversations for sure. So yeah, thanks for adding that.
Yeah, that's the only example I could come up with on the spot. I try not to use religious examples because they can be pretentious, but that's what came to mind. What you got? What do you got about organic stuff?
I feel like I get a lot more energy for my money when I select organic stuff.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I guess your claim is that organic food gives you more energy?
Yep.
Okay. Ooh, very simple claim. And can I get a sense of confidence? How sure are you that this is the case?
I was expecting questions.
Expecting questions for me?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
well, like I can explain why I think it gives more energy.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering how sure you are before we get started. I mean, you don't have to answer, no problem.
I'm basically certain. Last time I bought something that's not organic, I threw it out.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so yeah, I guess what
actually,
makes you believe this is the case?
Actually, that was false. I didn't throw it out the last time I ate it, but regretted buying it.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. So, what makes you believe that this is the case? That organic food gives you more energy than non-organic food?
I feel that pesticide residues is something the body needs to handle, and when you put something in your body that's not supposed to be there, your body has to deal with that, and that takes energy.
Okay.
Also feel like there's less in the food already. Like you can even see the difference on organic versus non-organic tomatoes. Which ones has more color to them?
Okay. So, I guess the theory here is on this last part. You said like the food maybe has more nutrients in it from the organic food. Is that kind of what you're saying? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I do not know about the nutrients. I'm feeling more about the energy outcomes. I know there's studies saying that there's not much on nutritional differences, but it's how much you get out of it, like how much you can perform on a veganic diet versus just a vegan diet.
Okay. I think I kind of understand. So,
Can I
you
ask,
seem like there's at least something.
Pierce,
Go
do,
ahead, Chase.
do you mind if I ask a quick clarifying question?
Yeah, feel free.
Cool, thanks. I was just wondering when you said an organic diet versus just a vegan diet, are you talking about an organic vegan diet versus a non-organic vegan diet?
Organic vegan, I actually said veganic.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. That's actually what I assumed, but good question. I should not assume that. Okay. So I think what you're saying, Zyrus, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying like there's something different about the food itself, where it has something that gives you a little bit more energy, like it contains a little something extra.
Yeah, I feel like when a place is gonna grow organic foods, they can't use pesticides on that field for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the soil gets to not just break down all the pesticides, but it also gets time to rebuild its life force in the ground, which gives for way better produce.
Okay. Okay. So the soil in organic food may have better soil composition. Is that kind of what you're saying? It has better stuff to grow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So I guess all these things kind of tied together. Sort of, I think. With regards to the pesticide residues, you were talking about like actually on like the skin of the fruit or the vegetable.
Well, food has pores and it breathes, so you probably know that if you have something that has an odor to it and you keep it in a bag with oats, it's gonna have a taste of that to it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay, I got you. So it kind of absorbs into the food, and perhaps it's even absorbing from the soil, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my first experience really noticing was after I ate like 2 or 3 clusters of organic bananas. And then I tried one regular one and it just tasted like chemicals. And there was no pre thought of there being anything wrong with it. So I wanted to complain. The veg worker said there was nothing wrong with it. So I bought another one and also tasted like chemicals. So I threw it away.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Did you do this kind of experiment with any other foods other than the bananas, or just the bananas?
Yeah, I should say pesticide and not chemicals, so because it's all
It's
chemicals.
fine. I know what you mean. But
Um, yeah, recently, the most recent experience I had with it was I buy this smoked tempeh that's organic, but it was sold out, so I got the same brand but smoked tofu, but it wasn't organic. And so I ate it. I didn't think much about it. I didn't have a pre-thought that anything bad was going to happen, but I felt this like micro pain all around my body, as if like every spot the protein got transferred to had something on it that was not good for me.
Oh. Okay. Gotcha. Do you think that there's a test that we could conduct on this food, like organic food versus non-organic food, so that we could know if organic food gives you more energy or not?
I bet it just do a whole week of just organic, and then feel how it is to like go back, because from my experience, your body registers from the different sources of food you have and gives you signals of which one to go to. So when it finds a better source of feed, then it will signal that the worst one is actually bad for you.
What do you think the best way, like the very, very best way, let's say you have unlimited resources, um, and you really value and you really want to know if this is true or not, what would be the way you would go about it?
If you want to prove it with a study, you mean?
Any way, whatever you think is the most reliable way. I'm not trying to influence your answer at all.
You could test it on athletes.
Athletes? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, can you describe how that test would work?
Checking for the performance changes when sprinting, for example.
Okay, sprinting. So maybe get some like Olympic track athletes and maybe don't tell them that you're doing this experiment, but have them eat only a certain amount of food, and then have the athletes do this test, have the athletes do that test them before, and test them after they've eaten this food for a month or something along those lines. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that would work really well.
Okay, fantastic. I guess if someone was to do this and they concluded that there was no statistical difference, the sprinters ran the exact same time, regardless of whether the food they ate was organic, how would that affect your confidence level?
I'd be quite shocked, to be honest.
Okay. You would be shocked, but I guess, would you believe that organic food gave you more energy still, or would you not believe it?
In my personal experience, it does so, and every time I tried, like, to go the other way, I seem to be deterred away.
Okay. So you probably wouldn't end up changing your mind?
No. Another interesting note on it is that I think that after your body's gotten used to having a pure source of feed, it gets used to not having that cleanup process. So when you then introduce something that does have the impurities, then it can do what happened to me, where the protein just went everywhere in my body and I got micropain. I don't think that's happening to people with bodies that are used to the impurities. I think the body handles the cleanup process before that.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand. I'm really wondering, that hypothetical with the athletes. I'm wondering why that wouldn't change your mind.
I believe in personal experience above studies.
Personal experience is more reliable than a study?
For me, yes.
Okay. Do you think someone can have a personal experience and form a belief because of it, and that belief not be true?
Yes. There are illusions.
Gotcha. How do you know this isn't the case for you?
Well, it's physical. It's something I've been ongoing about for years, and have connections that are experienced the same thing.
Okay. Do you think that someone can drink like a specific brand of bottled water, and when they drink a different specific brand of bottled water, they feel worse, and when they drink this other one, they feel better? It feels like it gives them a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's
And,
possible.
Okay. And do you think they can really believe that it to be true, but it not be the case?
Well, I feel it is true because emotion affect everything around us, and it affects food. That's why it's like love is the secret ingredient in food. If someone's not doing well and they're having like a very tired, like just hanging on there type of emotion as they're cooking food for you, and you eat that, you're gonna feel lower than if someone cooked it and had enough energy for themselves and put care and love into it.
Okay. What do you think would happen if you were to eat some non-organic food, and you really took your time cooking it, and you're really having a great time, put a lot of love into it, and but didn't realize that it was non-organic? Do you think that it might?
Guys.
They're actually owned by the same company, and all they do is slap a different, label on the bottle. Do you think he could still? Do you think it's possible that this fictional Adam could still actually hold this belief and believe it to be true, even though it's the same water?
I believe it can be true, but that is a really nasty like illusion circuitry going on in your brain.
But this is a possible scenario. Do you believe this is like a possible scenario? Like
Yeah,
you
I do.
could. Okay. And but I guess with regards to you, that this isn't happening with you, but it could be happening with Adam. I guess why is it happening? Why is it possible that it could happen for Adam, but it's not for you?
No, I'm challenging my beliefs. I'm just sensing and like what I'm sensing, like what I'm feeling with my fingertips and stuff. I've, I've I'm not defending what I am. I'm questioning, and I've been very skeptical. But if my body's telling me not to eat non-organic stuff after it's been introduced to organic stuff, then it'd be silly of me not to listen to my own body.
Okay. I guess what could change your confidence? What could get you to not believe that? What could you learn that could convince you that organic food doesn't, give you energy?
If you can drink a bottle of pesticide and get good energy out of that, I'll change my belief.
Is that the only way that you would change your mind?
I mean, if you made pesticide healthy, that would have to be one of the things. The other one would be that if you're able to produce the same quality of produce using really bad soil versus really good soil, which makes no sense whatsoever, then I don't think you can change my belief, my friend.
If you were to learn that the amounts of pesticides that actually, I'm not saying this is the case, by the way, I'm just pulling this right out of thin air. If you were to learn that pesticides, the amount of pesticides that actually make it into the produce are so minuscule that the human body hardly even knows that they end up in the body, would this change your confidence?
Don't no, because any impurities in the body is going to be a tax on the energies.
Like if it was so minuscule, if you were to learn this, I'm not even saying this is true, but just that it was so minuscule, the body just, it just like, well, it doesn't even realize it's there, it ends up in the urine, goodbye. It's just a hypothetical.
That sounds like a body that is well functioning to clear that up, but mine's used to the pure stuff. So if I'd try that, I'd probably have to eat unorganic stuff for a while just to build that up, and I wouldn't have nearly as much energy, I think. But I do believe in food transmutation. So and I have experience going out and using the power of the mind to manifest foods that are non-organic to be pure and having no nasty side effects. Well, not much at least.
I'm going to try to repeat back what I heard. I got a little confused. You said like you manifest in your mind about regarding these inorganic foods, and you were able to eat them without any negative side effects?
It's for me, it's these spiritual entities that cooperate and do it. So it's not me doing it. It's these workers. It sounds crazy, but you have to sense, feel, see, experience yourself, and the stuff that you have yet to. It's just fate to take that as a truth.
Okay, that is a very, very different, very interesting and very different claim from what we're kind of talking about here. I don't want to take up too much time. I would love to explore that with you sometime. But maybe we should just stay on topic. I think I'll ask you one last question and then we'll wrap up. If there was an alien and his name is Alan, and he were come down to planet Earth, and him being an alien, he can't eat any human food. He doesn't even need to eat. Eating isn't even a part of his biology. But he comes down to Earth, and he hears some people saying that organic food gives you more energy, and he hears some other people saying, "Oh, it's just a load of crap. I've tried organic before for a few years, and it just didn't do anything for me." How does Alan determine who is true, who is right?
Can Alan eat any food?
Nope.
Visiting the farms that are producing the produce, looking at seeking out people that are eating strictly organic, that are vegan, and then basically observing their facial structures and looking for the health, the signs of health when it comes to skin and nails and hair and all that.
Okay. Do you think that is the most reliable way to determine whether organic food gives you more energy than non-organic?
I'd say the athlete study would be the most efficient, but the fastest for yourself, I think, would be to go and look at people.
Okay. I guess going back to the athletes, you said that wouldn't be very convincing if you were to do that. That you would still believe, even if the outcome was, the opposite of your belief, that you'd still believe organic food. It still gives you more energy.
I got a meme for that. Can I answer with a meme?
I'm not. You can answer however you'd like. it says no science is immune to the infection of politics and the corruption of power. I wonder if that's really is the one of the reasons. Now I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, and we should probably wrap up here. But is one of the reasons for you believing that organic food gives you more energy is that you can't trust some of the politics and the producers of food?
No, it's non-related. have
Okay.
recently more gotten into politics and all that.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, then I guess we'll kind of wrap it up here. Was I able to get you to reflect on the quality of the reasons for your belief that organic food gives you more energy?
I did reflect, yes.
Okay, then I'm gonna give myself a personal 5 stars there, and I'll let you ask any questions to me that if you have desire to do so.
All right. I did want to add to the meme that I put is like, can you imagine a scenario where the study is completely safe?
I lost you there. Can you run that past me one more time?
Can you imagine a scenario where a study is completely safe?
I guess when it involves humans and ingesting things, maybe not. Maybe there's always some sort of at least minor risk.
And if you'd like to add me that I'd like that, and I'd love to talk more about far out stuff with you if you'd like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we can do that. I will send you that, and we'll set up a time to talk if you want. Cool.
Awesome. Okay, that was really cool. Thanks, Cyrus. That was really great. And good job, Pierce. And for folks in the audience, what you might notice there is that Pierce was definitely asking some challenging questions, right? But he was doing it in such a way, such a neutral, like still inquisitive and wanting, good answers and stuff, but in a way that was not like a debate, not being a jerk about it or anything, but politely challenging and trying to get to the core of everything, and get as many good answers out of it as we can get, So I really like that, and I thought Pierce kept the rapport really high the whole time, so it was very nice. Cool. Okay, so Pierce, Humanity 1000, take it away.
Okay. How y'all guys doing?
Okay, let me take it away. I'll take it away then. Let me take this motherfucker away real quick. All right, so so street epistemology is a friendly, polite conversation, like an interview. It's not a debate. It's an interview basically where one person only asks questions of the other person from a neutral position in order to help the person examine what they believe, why they believe it, and if the reasons they have for believing it are reliable or not. And so it can be challenging questions, but it's really a great way of keeping things de-escalated and not controversial or too intense, But it can really help us examine our beliefs. And the claim, so if you want to make a claim, if you want to come up on stage, anybody, you'll see how this works. But the idea is you make a claim, like a sentence or so, and then somebody will ask you questions about it. So claims could be anything, basically, something like meat is murder, or the meat industry is bad for the environment, or I believe in a god, or gun control is good, or gun control is bad. But it needs to ideally be something that you really believe, something that you believe strongly. So yeah.
Thanks, Chase. I had no idea what you were going for there. So. Thank you.
Sure, segues are not your thing. I get it. All right, ready, set,
No, I just,
go.
Anyway.
So does anybody have a claim?
Yeah, it's having that glitch again.
Oh man.
That sucks. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, let's see if 1000 has a claim. I think they might be familiar with street epistemology. Is that true?
The sort of scavenger sort of
Okay.
like ethical meat sort of thing. Like, let's take it for example in California, like bears, they eat efficiently. Like they do not eat all of the salmon, and so they leave the salmon parts left for other animals to eat. And I believe someone explained it was interesting, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. And
Okay, cool.
it's not necessarily my argument, but something I argued before because it was put to me, and I wanted to place
Okay.
it here and
Okay,
have
yeah.
it criticized or analyzed.
Okay, cool.
Basically, that people would become scavengers.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so I think that'll be a fun topic to discuss. I think it would be cool because I'm not an expert at SE, at street epistemology. Like I did try it earlier with Taryn, and it went pretty well. I think we gained clarity on her position and stuff. And but I'm not as good at it as Pierce is, and I think it would be best for everybody to see demonstrations that are as best as they can be. So let's have, if Pierce is down and if you're down 1000, let's have Pierce run street epistemology on you. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Okay, cool. But I'm gonna be up here listening.
Alright. I didn't quite catch exactly what the claim was. I caught people would become scavengers, and then I didn't really
Well,
get the rest.
not all people. Like we're going into sort of like, I wouldn't say extreme thought experiment, but something quite different from our current world.
Sure, but
Let's say like
for like one sentence claim though is what we need to start with, if that's okay.
oh sure. People in a certain world where factory farming has finally been made illegal. In order, there would be a small, at least a small group of people who would still eat meat try to do it in an ethical way and become scavengers, essentially.
So
I don't know. I probably worded that poorly.
It's okay.
I'm trying to think of more.
We'll try it. Pierce, do you have any way of condensing that, or we need to write it out in the chat maybe?
yeah, actually, I don't even understand it.
I think-
I'm gonna need some clarity.
Yeah, and maybe and Pierce might not understand some of this stuff because Pierce isn't vegan, so he's not exposed to all these kinds of things either. So 1000, help me out, and let's try and maybe even 1000 if you can type it out in the chat in the upper right corner there.
Sure. Let's see.
It would help if I knew what factory farming is.
Oh. Uh.
Basically, it's just like it's where most meat, dairy, and eggs come from. It's a hellhole. It's like a torture place where the animals are kept in tiny little cages, and that kind of thing.
Okay. So like a big industrial milking and
Yes.
plant, basically. Okay.
Yeah, like before they go to slaughter.
Right,
Yeah,
and there's
okay.
even and because I learned about this, there's even marketing industries that try to make you feel less, quote unquote, less guilty. For example, cage free, like they're out of the extremely small cages, like and stuff, but it's like an extremely small room, stuff. So it's not too much better. Like there's no light sometimes in these rooms. Okay.
No, I think I understand the claim much better than.
Cool.
So let me kind of recap what I think you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, in this hypothetical world where there's no factory farming, so no big producers of meat, there would still be people who would want to eat meat and still eat
Right.
meat, and they would become.
Sorry, go on.
They would become scavengers. What exactly would they be scavenging?
I guess there's two claims. And we can take it to go down both pathways. There would still be people who would desire meat in such a world. And number two, there is an ethical way to obtain meat. I guess is the more
Okay.
the one that is the main focus one.
Okay, and if I
To become, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to jump in real quick to say that Pierce, I think, friend to animals made a pretty good summation of the claim in the chat. Do you see that where it says, in a world and 1000? Tell me if you agree with this as a summary of your claim, that in a world where factory farms are abolished, human scavenging leftover meat from carnivorous animals would be ethical.
Yeah, I think. I mean, we can always go down a different road later.
Or wherever, or like
You think of the-
roadkill.
Yeah, I'd agree. Friend to animals. I agree with that.
Or even if it's
Let's
like,
use that.
okay, cool. Or maybe you're thinking like, even if it's roadkill, or if you're just walking through the forest and you find
Yes.
a dead animal who died, an animal who died, a wild animal, then is it okay to eat their dead body at that point, kind of thing? I think you're arguing maybe that it would be ethical for them to do so because they didn't take the life. No, does that make sense? Is that right, what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Pierce.
I think we can even condense this down really, really far. And if you want to explore it this way, I mean, I'm totally on board. If you don't, then just let me know. But I think we could just explore the claim that I think you would make. There is a way to ethically obtain meat. Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay? You want to just explore
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah, I said that before. Yeah.
Or-
There's a.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, let's just do that. That's super simple. And that'll make it easy on that.
Or Pierce, what do you think about like scavenging is an ethical way to get meat?
We could do that too.
Because that way it's
That
best.
would be a
It's,
subset of.
yeah, that's a subset. So I don't know if you want to make it that just to get to the point of it.
We can go either direction. I'm just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which do you hold more strongly, 1000?
I pretty equal on this. I mean, yeah, I have so many vegan friends, and I've cut down on my meat consumption quite considerably.
Yeah, I'm thinking go for the more narrow one. It seems of like scavenging is ethical.
Right.
Okay.
Let's
Or meat
let's
is
go with what Chase said. I agree with Chase.
Okay. All right. And can I get a sense of confidence? How sure are you that this is the case?
I mean, I think 80 to 90. I'd like to say 100, but truth is, I'm rarely, if ever, 100% sure on anything.
You and me both. You and me
Yeah.
both.
Safer
Okay.
to be that way, too. Words full of
Alright.
surprises.
And I think this is actually a really good example of a way that people in this Discord server can use street epistemology. So I think this is a really good example. But moving on, so scavenging for meat is ethical. What makes you to believe that this is the case?
Well, one of the, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is that I was taught that one of the main principles or basic points of veganism was that there was a lot of unnecessary harm, especially in the factory farming industries, where numerous examples were brought to my attention and stuff. Is that unnecessary harm and death in those industries.
Okay, so and I think you're talking about kind of like big business
Yes.
factories where chickens and cows, whatever, are raised in its horrible conditions, kind of type
Yes.
situation. Okay, gotcha. And because those conditions are so bad, scavenging for meat is like it doesn't have those bad conditions.
Right. And
Okay.
and more importantly, it's you're not cutting an animal's life shorter. It's like literally found in nature. The animal has
Oh.
already passed away. So that
Gotcha.
kind of
Okay.
covers the unnecessary pain.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Is there anything that could change your confidence that it would be ethical to eat this scavenged meat?
I can't think of it at the moment. Maybe?
Okay. So it kind of sounds like you've used some sort of deduction. So it's kind of like, well, actually, are there ethical things that someone could do that don't actually involve any pain, any causing of pain?
Any causing of pain. Ethical
Yeah.
things people can do.
Or unethical things, I guess. Bad things.
I mean, sure.
Okay.
Trying to understand.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This is actually throwing me for a little loop here.
It's all good.
I think initially I misunderstood what you meant by scavenging. I was more understanding. I was more thinking of hunting, which is kind of
Oh,
weird. Yeah, completely different, obviously.
all good.
Yeah. So I guess if there are unethical things that could be done that don't involve pain, is it possible that scavenging for meat could be one of those unethical things?
I am trying to see how it is unethical. I'm sorry. Could you restate it?
Sure.
Maybe I'm missing.
Like, I guess we're kind of. I think I agree with what you said. You said that there can be unethical things that can be done that don't involve inducing pain or suffering, right?
Right.
Okay. And I guess how do we? And your main reason for believing that scavenging for meat is ethical is that it doesn't cause any pain.
Right.
Okay, it's not hurting the animals.
Right. There's no excess pain.
Gotcha. So I guess how do we know that it's ethical to scavenge for the meat? That is not one of those other things that could be unethical.
Well, it's not necessarily that it is ethical or unethical. It's that it's more ethical than the factory farming.
Okay, gotcha.
Maybe I wasn't clear on that. My bad.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So scavenging is for meat is more ethical than factory meat, basically.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Is scavenging for meats ethical then?
I would say yes, because again, you're not killing the animal. You're essentially using like the leftover of another animal that already, like with the bear example, eating the salmon.
Is there anything that you could learn that would change your confidence either up or down?
I'm trying to think. I guess if the in this scenario for scavengers, I don't think so. I'm trying to honestly think of if there's anything that would change it right now. Because the claim is that there is um, that scavenging is ethical based on that it causes less harm comparatively to, or even no harm comparatively to the factory farming and being raised to be killed.
I'm gonna throw a pretty silly scenario out here, and
Sure.
excuse me for the silliness. But if you were to learn to your satisfaction, like this really convinced you that animals didn't actually feel pain, would you still think that factory farms were unethical?
That animals didn't feel pain.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit crazy. It's a little bit out there.
It but I understand why you're saying it. Like to try to think of it. I appreciate it. So let's see, Pierce. I think that I would still think that because are we, if I may ask, a clarifying question about that statement. Is it that the conditions would be better in that also, or it's just that they wouldn't feel pain and still be in the same conditions?
The conditions would be identical. It's just like they don't have the nerves to physically feel pain.
Yeah, I wouldn't be I wouldn't necessarily be in favor of that either. I would still try to replace factory farming then.
Okay.
In that
gotcha.
case.
I'm just gonna kind of speak to the audience since we're trying to do a little bit of learning here. I did kind of a real reason check. So we were talking about how the factory farms, the main reason, from my understanding, 1000 had was that the animals, feel all this pain, and that's unethical because they're being hurt. So that's kind of what I'm going after. So 1000, so it doesn't sound like anything would change if these animals couldn't physically feel pain anymore, if you were to learn that, crazy hypothetical. I guess with regards to like these crazy hypotheticals, is there something that could change, like something crazy like my example, that you could learn that would get you to change your confidence?
I'm sorry, change confidence in that scavenging was more ethical alternative, or that to change my view that we should change the factory farms, or an alternative to how they're run now?
I guess we kind of I think these two claims are kind of connected. So I kind of jumped onto the factory farm claim. Factory farms are unethical. Yeah, what could get you to change your mind with that? What could you learn? The crazy thing you could learn.
You mean in the fact that factory farms are ethical? I'm going to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, what could get you from unethical to ethical?
Ethical factory farming. There are different positions. If we're going by the it's just better conditions that they can. Trying to think.
If I could, I might be able to bridge this a little bit. Sorry to jump in, but I think it might be like for me, like I was agreeing with 1000 in that factory farms are terrible because they're causing pain to animals and animals feel pain, But like Pierce said, for me, if it turned out that animals didn't feel pain, like hypothetically, or whatever, like if it were true that animals don't feel pain, then what's the problem with factory farming? Well, what I would say is that they still have psychological suffering, right? So they may not have nerve endings for physical pain, but if you're kept in a tiny cage your whole life, they end up going insane, just like we would. If you're stuck in an elevator with 10 people, you lose your mind. So I would say, well, I just want to wrap up real quick, I guess. So I would say that, like, if factory farms, or if So I would still be against factory farms even if animals didn't feel pain, because they would still feel psychological trauma and sadness, and that wouldn't be good. But if you removed that from the scenario, such that animals didn't feel pain or psychological trauma, then I would have no problem with factory farming as far as their treatment of animals, because at that point, an animal is basically like a plant. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
So 1000,
Um,
with kind of regards to what Chase said, if I'm gonna throw out a hypothetical for you. So if there was a way that biologists were to mutate all the farmed animals to the point where they don't have nerve endings, and they don't really form any memories, like it's just like snip snip on the old bottom of the brain, right? Um, would you still think that factory farming was unethical? With like regards to farming those types of animals, modified animals?
Genetically modified animals. Very interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
I know it. Pierce, what kind of rabbit hole? I've been in some of your SEs, but I never thought it would go down like this. My friend, my dude.
Oh, neither did I.
And remember, you know, some questions don't have to be answered right away. You know, it's always okay to say I don't know, and that I'll just have to think about that some more. You know, and we might need to move it along soon too, because I know there's another person in the audience, Milk.
Oh, right. I'll finish it up.
Okay, cool. So let's give you guys another couple
I do
minutes.
Okay, I do want to say this. I am not a vegan. Like I said, I do still eat meat. So in a sense, I am also kind of sort of trying to defend positions I'm not. It's not that not that I'm uncomfortable with, but like I don't completely like with. I do remember though something a thought experiment a few months ago. I talked to someone in another server with. It was an ethical way, which it was raising animals, and let's say a cow that lives. If you give them a good life, free open range, you don't hurt them physically or mentally in any way, and you just let them die of old age and just let them rest. And then you take their meat after they pass away. They passed away from old age. Like ethically, that would be in line with like, oh, this is ethical meat. You can eat this because no excess harm. In the principle of being consistent with no excess harm and stuff. So that would be to answer your question. I forget who asked it, but that would be a way in order to have quote unquote ethical meat and stuff and consume it and obtain it.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up there, but that was awesome.
Cool. Okay, yeah, you both did really great. Pierce did great at asking challenging questions and remaining polite and everything. And I think 1000 did a great job of, really reflecting, taking time, not rushing his answers, really, thinking about this stuff. And that was really cool to see. So thank you both.
Yes.
Okay.
It got a little weird, but I'm okay with that.
Oh, I'm getting pink.
And 1000, I'll definitely, like, we would love to talk to you more and answer more of these questions that you have when we have time. So, talk to me later or talk to anybody else that's not a troll.
Oh yeah, yes. I don't know what happened, but I was bombarded by trolls earlier. I have no idea.
That'll happen.
Like I didn't. When I came into the server, it was yes or no, and I didn't want to lie. I didn't know I had to push yes in order to get the room.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. There was just a little miscommunication, but I'm glad we finally got it figured out. Okay, cool. All right, well, yeah.
To go back to the audience?
Yeah, 1000, if you could go to the audience, and then we'll talk to Milkman. I know this is going to be an interesting conversation here, but thanks again. So, Pierce, this is my buddy Milkman that we've been chatting, mostly just private chats over the past couple months or something, and we have many points of disagreement, many points of agreement, but we get along really well. And so, Milkman, this is my buddy Pierce. Pierce is really good at street epistemology. So, let's let y'all. Milkman, did you have a claim that you were thinking about exactly? That's like a sentence long or so.
Um, all right. Well, good to meet you, Pierce. Do forgive me if I end up having a little bit of stage fright.
Oh,
I don't know.
that's all right. It happens. You're doing fine.
So, I guess just to keep it short and sweet, I am a hunter. But I'm also a follower of God, and when I hunt, I do follow indigenous practices by in honoring life, using every part of the animal when it is killed, making sure that to not excessively kill animals, and to just how do I put it in the best way? Just
Maybe that there's an ethical way, like that hunting is ethical, or that some hunting is ethical.
yeah, some hunting is ethical. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't. I guess what Tristan said, I do agree. Murdering animals for fun, I do think is absolutely wrong. I have personally met hunters who do enjoy just killing for the thrill of it, leave the carcasses in the woods, for shits and giggles. Why not? I think that's absolutely disgusting practice. When I hunt, the animal is used. Its life is honored.
Okay.
Through,
So yeah, so before we let you get into all that, and Pierce will ask you all those great questions and stuff, let's try to make that one claim. So did you think that was a good one of some hunting is ethical, or do you want
yes.
to? Okay, if that's good with you, or if you want to modify it, that's fine.
Hunting for sustenance.
Okay.
Forgive me, I don't really know what that word means.
Yeah,
Something to eat the animal, right? To
Yeah,
have nutrition. Yeah. Okay, cool.
cool.
Alright. So hunting is ethical as long as you are using the animal and consuming it, or having someone consume it. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Can I get a sense of how confident you are that this is the case?
I would say I'd say very confident. I do feel, that the animal it's not like a factory farm. It's not caged in, like kind of like the. I was gonna talk about that, but I think the previous conversation kind of covered all that. It is in the wild. I feel like that hunting is. It also more or less hunting naturally. I feel like it more or less follows kind of like the overall rule of nature, if you understand what I'm saying. That in the wild, animals, and I guess if many people here consider humans to be like animals, animals do hunt, do kill for resources, and especially with how the resources are used. As I said, I only hunt as much as I need. Every part of the animal is used. The meat is either eaten or stored away or given to those who are in need of it. The bones are used to make materials. And the fur, me and my buddies, we like to donate that fur to some local shelters who are able to make clothing out of it and help provide warmth and clothing for people who are in need.
Okay. I think I understand what you're saying. So, because you use all of the animal, and you also mentioned earlier that I think you do something to respect the animal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and that humans are kind of like the predators, and in nature there's the predators and preyed upon.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, I still the natural cycle of life. Well, just I guess you could consider it the natural order. Many hunting and predators and prey. what is natural order? Trying to find the best way to describe it.
I think I understand what you're talking about. So humans are at like the top of the food chain. So we're naturally going to prey upon other animals, kind of like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I could say, humans. I say that that humans are. Me and Chase had this discussion before. Humans are far more intelligent, and are obviously we've come to be able to kind of more or less pick or choose what we want to eat. But I will say that being a vegan, I will say that there are still casualties with being a vegan as well. Like if you think about the amount of plant consumption by vegans, you have to kind of think about all the underground, all the little critters and the bugs and the bees, all the all the natural life that takes part, that suppose are considered animals, like insects, bees, rodents. A lot of them end up suffering because humans grow excessive amounts of fruits and vegetables to be able to help supply people's wants and needs. So I guess my question is about this is like, what is like the big difference, which I feel that like, I know it may sound like kind of like stupid at first, but as a hunter, I hunt larger mammals like deer, wild boar, elk, stuff like that, while vegans, all the vegans consume large quantities of plants, but then all these all this other life, like insects, moles, and rodents, bees, end up taking casualties for that.
Okay, maybe. That's interesting. I haven't. I wouldn't know. I guess that kind of would be a separate claim here. But let's try to stay on topic of your claim, which is hunting with some stipulations is ethical. So I want to run a little thought experiment by you.
All right.
So Matt was in here earlier. He's not a vegan, but he is a vegetarian. A good friend of mine. We don't really talk about that too much. That's not one of our things we discuss too often. But if let's say we got Alan, he's an alien. He doesn't know anything about Earth. He doesn't know anything about veganism, vegetarianism, meat eating, hunting, and he were to land a spaceship down, and we had you and we had Matt, and Matt was telling Alan, how the alien, how unethical hunting is with these stipulations, and you were telling him how hunting is ethical with all the stipulations. How would Alan figure out whether hunting with the stipulations is ethical or not?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Okay, I'll try to repeat it quickly and hopefully simplify it. So, Alan the alien lands a spaceship. We got Matt. He is a vegetarian, and he believes that hunting is unethical no matter what. And we got you telling Alan that hunting is ethical as long as you do these certain things. Who should Alan believe? How should Alan figure out who to believe? What's the best way?
Honestly, I think that's up to Alan's individual choice.
But he wants to believe in only things that are true. He values that. What's the best way?
Well, I guess the best way is to, I guess the best way for him is to kind of just be able to experience both. Maybe try hunting, maybe try, my the way that I hunt and the way that, my friends and family hunt, in that you know ethical manner where, all the animal is used, and it's actually, the fur and the bones are actually, being used as well along with the meat, and, we only hunt what we need, and, we do our best to disturb nature as little as possible while we hunt, besides the, the animal that is hunted. And maybe then he could try being a vegan, seeing what he likes, and that, and then after having both experiences, that would be up to him from to decide. I mean, I completely understand where vegans are coming from, especially, with all the animal, like would absolutely consider slaughterhouses to be animal cruelty. I mean, hell, I've seen some of the videos that Chase showed me, and, because of him, I actually got a real in-depth look of what slaughterhouses are like. And, seeing those pigs ripped in half, and, seeing chickens, have their head put in electric water, it's like, how is this right? Like, these are still lives. So, that's why I do what I do, because, I still acknowledge that the animal is a life, and it is a life to be honored. But, when I hunt that animal, that's why I do what I do. That's why I use every single part of it to make sure that that animal's life is honored.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering how Alan the alien would determine which is ethical. You mentioned kind of trying both out. I'm wondering if that's more of just like would be a personal preference, or if you could actually figure out what which is more ethical.
I mean, I guess with with ethics, I guess that, I guess ultimately that, after he has both experiences, that would ultimately be for him to decide.
Do we decide what is ethical? Like, do we determine what is ethical ourselves by, our personal experiences?
Sure, I think that human beings are fully capable of developing, what is, and considering what is ethical and what is not.
Okay.
I mean, I'd say a lot of things that are ethical depend on individual thought.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's
Interesting.
kind of where ethics, began, is where with individual thought and, developing that. It's like, hey guys, look at what I found. I think this is more ethical than that is. And then, people hop on that train. And then when they find something and then, somebody finds something else that's ethical, some people may hop off that train because they consider that to be more ethical. So it really just all depends on individual thought.
Okay. I guess what is the difference between an opinion and something being ethical?
Wait, what was
So I'm gonna kind of let you in on why I asked this question. It may have been poorly worded, and I apologize for that. When I was listening to you describe ethics, I couldn't help but think the word that kept popping into my mind was opinion. It sounded like you were describing an opinion. Are ethics just opinions?
I mean, ethics can certainly. I mean, I think that maybe an ethic starts out as an opinion, but then could turn into a fact, depending on, because, for something to be a fact, I feel like it has to be proven. So when something becomes, like, let's say hypothetically, growing plants did not cause any kind of, casualties to, bees or bugs or insects or any kind of life that, lives underground, like rodents or moles. Let's say that it was completely perfect, while, hunting is the only one that actually took the lives of animals. Then it would be a fact that veganism is more ethical, because there are no animal lives that are taken.
Okay. So it would be more. The last sentence I heard was it would be more ethical if no animal lives were taken. Would it be more ethical if no animals were ever hunted?
Hmm. Oh, ethical. That's a tough one. Because I feel like with hunting, like I feel like either way there are still going to be there's still going to be animal casualties. So, I mean, whether it's intent, the animal is intentionally hunted, or whether it's not intentional. I know it may seem, many people may have different opinions on this. One's intentional, one's an accident, but I feel like either way, an animal is ends up getting killed. What I really feel like what matters is that if that animal is actually used for a purpose, and that way its life is honored. Like I said, like when I kill
Gotcha.
a deer, the meat, the bone, and the fur is all used up in
I'd
honor
make a
of
little
life.
thought experiment, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't want this to get too dark, because I can see this getting really dark really quick. But I'm gonna bring back Alan. So he's an alien, but obviously we can talk to him and have conversations and whatever. If I were to hunt Alan, right,
Yeah.
and I were to honor him and use every single part of Alan's body, and everything you would do if you were hunting whatever animals you happen to hunt, would it be ethical for me to do so?
Well, hmm. Um, I mean, that's a tough one. Um, to be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure about that. If I could answer, I would, but I can't say that I'm confident enough to be able to accurately answer that question.
I think I probably caused you to reflect a little bit on your belief. Does that sound? Do you think that's accurate? You had a little bit of reflection.
Um, I could say, yeah. That's definitely some reflection. Like I said, I'm always 18, so I'm always, trying to learn new things and, you know, adapt to different lifestyles. And I think I was talking, like I said, I was like talking to Chase before about this. Y'all can find a way maybe to to be able to kind of provide all the products and all the food that hunting and the meat industry can without any
You cut out at the end, but that's quite all right. I think I got what you were saying there. But we're gonna wrap up with this conversation. Last couple of questions. Has your confidence changed about your belief through this conversation, or have you remained the same?
I'd say it remained the same, but I'm always open to new ideas, and I'm always thinking over my own personal thoughts, and that it's possible that could change in the future.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you're so open-minded. All right. You have any questions for me before we wrap up?
No, sir. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, that was really cool to watch. Yeah, I thought that Pierce did really great, asking good questions, challenging questions. I liked his hypotheticals and thought experiments. That was really cool. Outsider tests, it seemed like, and the alien, and he kept it pretty neutral, and rapport seemed nice. And I thought Milkman did a great job of really taking his time to think about these things, to contemplate, and that it sounds like he's going to keep thinking. So that's good. So right on to Milkman for that. Right on to Pierce. I'll give a quick little summary of what street epistemology is for new folks that have been joining. We've been in here for like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and it's been fun, but we might have to cut it short soon, unless Nick wants to come up here. Nick Leiston, not to put too much pressure on you or nothing, but I think it'd be cool if you came up here and made a claim about animal rights and had Pierce ask you questions, because Nick's a great animal rights activist. But no pressure. But anyways, street epistemology, just real quick, is a polite conversation, more like an interview, not a debate, but an interview where one person asks only questions of the other person in a neutral way, to avoid conflict and defensive mechanisms coming up. And it's basically just asking someone what they believe, helping them examine what they believe, why they believe it, and if the reasons they have for believing it are reliable or not. So yeah, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm alright. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Have you seen street epistemology before?
Yeah, I've watched that guy a couple times.
Anthony Magnabosco?
Yeah, that guy.
Cool.
But when I found out he wasn't a vegan, I wasn't really that interested in watching him anymore.
Oh.
But yeah, so I guess I don't fully really know, like, is street epistemology different than what we just do in outreach all the time?
I would say so, yeah, because it's really, like I said, trying to be from a neutral perspective, and we'll let Pierce speak to this some more, like the differences between SE and doing activism, or like having an agenda where you're definitely trying to change somebody's mind or something, because it's really a lot more about just trying to understand what someone believes and help them understand their belief. And really examine it better as a team kind of thing. But Pierce, what do you think?
Yeah, so actually, I have a pretty good example. If you don't mind me taking a couple minutes to give that example, I think it could be useful.
Sure.
No, wait, no, is Pierce like a neutral part? So,
Right.
Is it like, can I ask if Pierce is a vegan, or?
Pierce is. I don't believe Pierce is a vegan. No.
And
No,
Pierce
I'm
is Pierce is a street epistemologist that you've invited to help you host the stage.
Yes, exactly. And so Pierce, yeah, so Pierce is like, me and Pierce both really like street epistemology. That's how we met, through the SE server. But so I invited him to come put on this demonstration, so that we can learn some of the tools that SE uses. And I can post for you or send you a message of a vegan activist doing street epistemology on a college campus, where he had chosen the claim. It was basically like, it's wrong to kill animals for food. Or it's wrong to kill animals unnecessarily or something, and see where they stand on that, and then ask them questions and stuff. And it was really cool. So I'll send you that video. So it can be used in vegan activism, but I only use parts of street epistemology in my vegan activism, because I feel the necessity to really, spit facts, and like, drive home the point of how serious a problem this is, that the animals, really don't deserve this, and, we got no right to do this, and that kind of thing, you know what I mean? But I also use some of the tools of, de-escalation that street epistemology does, or actually like preventing escalation from occurring in the first place, really. And so street epistemology just does a really good job of keeping things calm and cool, and helping people inspire reflection, and keep them thinking about it later on, and maybe urging them to have a follow-up conversation, or to go research an issue more, so that they learn more about it. Like, I've been interviewed, you missed it earlier, Nick. It was really cool though, when Pierce was interviewing me about my claim that milk increases the risk of cancer. And so it gave me, Pierce has given me a platform. Any street epistemologist is giving the interviewee an opportunity, a platform to preach whatever you want to preach, you know what I mean? And I think it's really cool.
Are those cartoons? Is that a picture of Socrates?
Yes.
Okay, I figured because it sounded like a Socratic method what you're describing, so I just assumed that was Socrates in little pictures.
Yeah, that's a huge element of street epistemology. Some people would say it's the entire thing. I would say it's probably just a portion of the middle, the main bits, I suppose you could say. But
Interesting.
if you guys don't mind, I'd like to just give a quick example from SE. It's actually how I discovered SE. So there was this time a friend of mine. I'm just gonna call him Ryan. That's not his real name, but that's quite all right. I'd known him for a few years, and there was this one day where he said something, and I didn't agree with it, and I'm kind of can sometimes be kind of a smart ass, and he said you just have to have faith in whatever the heck he was talking about. I don't even know what it was, and yeah, I told him no, you don't have to have faith, and and he was like, well, yeah, you do. You have to believe in God. And I told him no. I told him I was an atheist, and he started yelling at me, and it was terrible actually. But him yelling at me and telling me all these things, um, it didn't convince me that his God was real. It was a terrible way to try to convince anyone of anything, right? It wasn't a good way to convince me that I was wrong. It wasn't a good way to convince me that he was right. And I think if I did exactly the same thing back to him, uh, it, it wouldn't have convinced him that I was right, and it wouldn't have convinced him that he was wrong, right? And I think, and I have no problem with like a cordial debate or just telling somebody some facts. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But I don't know that that's even the most reliable way to really get someone to think about why they believe something and to, really think about it, analyze it, reflect on it. I probably could have told Ryan, 10 reasons why Noah's Ark didn't really happen or something, whatever. And even if, they were really, really good reasons, I don't think he wouldn't have changed his confidence. If I were to get him to, if he were to do the same thing to me, even if he were to tell me reasons why Noah's Ark did occur, I think it's very unlikely that I would be convinced of his claim. But if I were to talk to him, get his permission, of course, he doesn't really want to talk about this kind of thing. But if I were to, and I were to examine help him examine the reliability of the methods he used to come to his conclusion, I think there's a much greater chance of him reflecting on the methods he's used, and perhaps his confidence could potentially shift.
Yeah, that's a great story that really illustrates the point. And like, one thing that happened with me, so I've seen street epistemology be done, and people decrease their confidence in their claim. And that's a good thing, like from a vegan's perspective. Like it could be something where like they start out thinking that it's okay to kill animals for food, and they're 95% sure, but by the end of the SE conversation, they've dropped their confidence down somewhat, and in my case, when one of the times I was interviewed, where I was talking about vegan health, this was months ago, I had like 50 vegan health sources, a list of them, like 50 of them, peer-reviewed scientific studies, and the SE people were interviewing me, and I was telling them, yeah, I got these 50 studies showing, meat causes cancer, etc., heart disease, blah blah blah. Here's all the experts, and one of the questions was, what could you do to decrease your confidence, or but the other one is like, what could increase your confidence that meat is unhealthy, that kind of thing. And I said, well, if I had even more scientific studies than what I have, and if they were of the best methodologies, and so me just answering that question made me realize that 50 is not enough. And so now I got 220. right? So now it's just like,
Mhm.
and I pass that thing around, I pass that document to everybody, and people in this group use it like on a daily basis. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah, lots of good stuff can come from this, I think. But I don't know, Nick, yeah. So Nick, do you have any follow up questions about street epistemology or versus activism, or do you have a claim in mind that you might want to make? Maybe something about animal rights.
Oh gosh. Um.
It could be something like,
hmm,
for example,
Um.
some common claims, that aren't related to animal rights. Are things like, I believe in a god, or gun control is good or gun control is bad, etc. So one for animal rights could be maybe something like slaughter is animal cruelty, or meat is murder, or it's immoral to use animals for
Oh,
food.
would
Oh,
that be a one?
talking about like, uh,
Like, could that be an
yeah, I
example?
think so. I think so. Like tactics of activism that you think are not effective. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That could be a claim.
Um.
Pierce.
Yeah.
May,
Okay. Yeah. So. Hmm. All right.
yeah. So we'll just try to get more information to make like a one sentence claim. So something like, some forms of activism are unproductive or bad, or or this specific form of activism is bad, and you could tell us what that is, or not necessarily that it's bad, but that it's, unless that's what you think, or you could say it's just not as effective as other forms of activism.
Um. Sure. Okay. What about So I don't think it's effective to make the claim that it's let me see I was thinking how to phrase this
Yeah, that's okay.
that um I'm just trying to think how to phrase this
You can also write it.
that
You can write it in the chat if you want to.
that oh no I mean I think I could probably just
Okay.
if I can frame it in my mind I could probably just say it out loud um that 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 one of the reasons why it's uh, eating animals is wrong is because don't do it. That's a very common one that I hear vegans do a lot.
It's because what? I
It's because we don't need to eat animals.
Oh, okay. Oh. Are you
Meat
saying?
is not. Meat doesn't have any necessary nutrients for humans. Is that the claim?
Right. When we make that claim as a way of
Oh,
defending why we should not eat animals is made the claim because we don't need to.
okay. So when vegans tell meat eaters that we don't need to eat animals for health, that is
Mhm.
not a good form of activism.
Right.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
it's actually counterproductive.
Okay, do you want to make it? Do you want to make the claim say counterproductive? Because that's pushing it even further. But you can do that if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's counterproductive.
Okay. So Pierce, do you understand this? That when that it's counterproductive for vegans to tell meat eaters that we don't need to eat animals for our health.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Okay,
Mhm.
get him.
It's gonna be challenging, but let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
get started. Can I get a sense of your confidence, Nick? How sure are you that this is the case?
Well, given the fact that I usually do make that claim, as an aside, I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident. So I would say 75% confident.
And why do you believe that this is the case? Why do you think it's not effective or counterproductive?
Well, because I think that the whole point of ethics is that it provides us protections. Well, the whole point of having rights is that it provides protections, particularly when others' needs to violate our rights are the greatest. Obviously, when others don't really have the need to violate our rights, it's sort of obvious. I mean, it's sort of obvious that they shouldn't. But really, the whole point of having rights is really as security from when others need to use us the most. So when we make the claim that that one of the reasons why we shouldn't eat animals is because we don't need to, we make we imply that if we did need to, then it would be somehow okay. It also sort of throws all animals that are used in medical experiments under the bus, because in some of those experiments, people, they can save people's lives as a result of those experiments. So, it almost implies that animal research is morally okay. And in fact, sometimes I actually hear vegans make the argument that if research was efficacious, then it would be okay. And then they usually will make a and so what they'll usually do is they'll make some argument like that research is useless, and they speak not from they speak from a position of ignorance, because very rarely are they actually like biomedical scientists. So it's very easy to dismiss those arguments. And as a biomedical scientist myself, I do dismiss those arguments. I think medical research can be critical for saving lives, human and non-human lives, like in veterinary medicine. That doesn't make it morally acceptable to do it. So I think that having a lot of the vegan argument rests upon efficacy is can really backfire in having a strong moral position about protecting the rights of others not to be used as commodities for others, regardless of how critical that need is.
I heard a couple different things here. I'm going to try to wrap up a lot of what you said into a very short sentence, and you can tell me if this is accurate or not. If it's not, please correct me. It sounds like what you're saying is, the argument that humans don't need to eat meat for, nutrition reasons, shouldn't be used, in activism, because it's probably not the strongest argument, not the best way to convince people. Is that
No,
accurate?
it's not that
Okay.
it's not that it's not the strongest argument. It's that it implies
Applies
that
other claims.
it implies that
that-
if it were necessary, that it would be okay.
Okay.
It sends that it
Interesting.
implies so when I use that argument, I'm very careful to make all these other arguments, these other points that I'm making, make all those very clear, and say, you can, but it always makes me a little bit worried to use the argument. I use it, but I always cash in a lot of caveats, and even when I do that, I feel like to some degree I'm sort of hurting the overall moral position.
Okay. So I think what you're saying is that if someone is going to use this argument, that they need to ensure that their interlocutor is understanding that the argument is just meant as like, hey, we don't actually need to eat meat, but if we did need to eat meat to survive, it still wouldn't be ethical to eat meat, I guess, harm animals, right?
Yeah, it's more of like
Yeah.
it allows them by making the argument. You're the way I kind of try to present is that it's sort of it allows them sort of a little bit of weakness. Like, look, I understand that, like, nobody wants to suffer, nobody wants to die, nobody wants to be in a position of where they're in a crisis. So I say, look, you don't have to be in this crisis. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Like, that's not the situation
Oh,
we're
okay,
in.
okay.
That being
Gotcha.
said, I'm like, so I'm trying to, like, so that's just my way of just being, look, we're all, we're not necessarily all, have the strength to do what's right when our life's on the line. However, if we really want to look at what we really should be doing about respecting the rights of others, then this is the right way of acting that we should aspire to, is one in which we protect others' rights, even when our need to use them is the greatest.
Okay. So I'm wondering, would you still agree with your claim that? So I think what it is humans don't need to eat meat. They're not nutritionally required to do so, and this using this with vegan activism, can be ineffective or counterproductive. If they were to change it from saying that we don't need to eat meat for nutritional reasons, if they were to say rather there are other alternatives rather than eating meat that are available, would you still feel the same way? Just that different phrasing.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Just that again. I didn't fully.
Sure. Sure. Let me try that again. So instead of people saying who are advocating for veganism or vegetarianism, I suppose. But anyway, instead of saying we humans don't need to eat meat for nutritional purposes, instead of saying that, they were to say, hey, there's a whole bunch of other options that you can have instead of eating meat. Would that be worse, better, the same?
There are a whole bunch of other options we have.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of sounds like, so I guess sort of like kind of almost avoiding the question altogether. So like not actually telling. I know it kind of sounds similar to me. I don't really see the difference, but maybe I'm missing something. I'm sorry, I wasn't. This might not have been the best example to use. The first one that came to my mind.
No,
The point of this, I guess, was to evaluate my own position and to try to improve it. Right? Yeah.
What could get you to? What would make you believe this is the case more, that vegans shouldn't use this statement for activism, or it's harmful or ineffective?
I'm not sure. Like it's a very delicate thing. That I've spent better part of a decade trying to like get around. So I'm not entirely sure. Like, it's a very nuanced sort of point. I think it's people should know that they can live without, they don't have to die if they go vegan. Obviously, like that's like that. I think that's at the same time, making that point does sort of imply that that does imply that if there was a danger to not consuming animal products, that they would be morally acceptable. It would be morally acceptable for them to consume animal products. So it's sort of you're balancing on a razor's edge.
Gotcha. I don't know if this is important.
So yeah, it's different.
I don't know if this is important to you, but I'm gonna ask, and we can kind of figure it out as we go, I suppose. Do you think that most people who are non-vegan that are out there, do you think they know that they can survive without eating meat? Like, is that a thing that you think most people are aware of, or not most people, or?
In the modern world, I mean, I think that in order for someone not to be aware of that nowadays, I think there'd have to be some degree of willful ignorance, because I mean the term vegan is pretty widespread nowadays, so everyone knows that vegans exist. So for someone to believe that you would die if you're a vegan is just not consistent with the fact that sort of common knowledge that vegans exist and that vegans aren't dropping dead everywhere. I mean, I guess sometimes you read articles about kids being starved by vegan parents and stuff, but like, but like for the most part, I think people understand that there are plenty of vegans that are surviving fine. So yeah, I think at this point it's willful. So it's almost like not even necessary to point out anymore. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
kind of why I brought that up. I was wondering how that
Yeah.
played into whether or not it's counterproductive or ineffective to bring that up. Yeah.
that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. Of like using that as a sort of like of using that as sort of a kind of bring that into to the argument like I don't know like so the problem is like so then it becomes not really so much about whether veganism is critical for survival, but whether it's healthy or not. And then the question becomes, would it be if it was unhealthy, would it be obligatory to go vegan? And I would say yes, and I think that's actually a strong position to say yeah, like if you would live fewer years as a vegan than non-vegan, you'd still be obligated to be vegan. And I think everyone should have the moral fortitude to be willing to sign off on that. Because you're taking so much from the victims that you're consuming by the hundreds, thousands even.
Now that you kind of thought about that a little more, has your confidence shifted at all?
Confidence in whether it's good to yes, I suppose like with that last interchange we had, I'm maybe more certain that it's a bad argument to say that to make a strong position about how veganism is healthier or as healthy as a non-vegan diet. I'm still not obviously convinced that you should never make that argument, but I would say it's probably a little bit stronger. That was, I think, the last interchange was nice.
Okay. With that, I think my job here is done. You got any?
Excellent. Thanks, Pierce.
Talking stick to you. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm sure the question that I would have for you is the same one that everyone here would have for you, which is being exposed to veganism as you have in this context. How in the world are you still not a vegan? I mean, that's sort of I'm curious.
Yeah, I've thought about it for sure. I don't know. It's not something that I guess ultimately it comes down to me not valuing the. It sounds bad. It sounds so bad, but it's just not something that I place a huge value on. Like, yeah, it sounds bad though.
Injustice.
Yeah.
You don't care about injustice.
Apparently not. I know, and it sounds so bad. It really does. And I'm hearing myself say it, and it doesn't sound good. I know it's not a good look, but.
So hearing yourself say that, does that change your confidence and you don't care about injustice?
Maybe.
Alright, well that's good.
That was cool.
What were you?
The student has become the
I think
teacher.
I mean, I also kind of cut you off because maybe you were going to say that you don't care about animals. Was that maybe what you're going to say, or were you going to say injustice?
So
I sort of interrupted you.
I was probably gonna say animals, but I mean injustice.
Yeah, I thought so.
I mean it's kind of this, almost the same thing, sort of in this context, maybe.
Not really.
What did
I
you
mean,
mean
not
by
care about
injustice?
animals. Well, I mean, injustice is just, I mean, treating others as as you'd want to be treated. Just treating others fairly. Like that would be an injustice, or
I guess
a
I
question
meant
of justice. Like,
I was
maybe
meaning.
vulnerable beings that are incapable of language.
Yeah, when you said injustice, I specifically meant like injustice towards animals, not humans. I obviously value injustice towards justice towards humans.
So you don't care about treating I don't know, I guess for lack of a better word, um that's what I'm trying to figure out. Think of a good word for this. I mean, prejudice based upon features unrelated to the mind. Well, there's prejudice based on features unrelated to the mind, because obviously, if you think a species is not really related to the mind, you can have humans that have less mental faculty than non-humans. Young children, people with mental disabilities. So yeah, so you're saying that you don't care about individuals based upon superficial features, which is kind of another word for bigotry. So you don't care about being a bigot. Like that could be a thing that you don't care about.
No, I wouldn't really say that. I think that's no.
Okay, well,
Like
go ahead, Pierce.
I would say like, like I wouldn't want to harm anything, but I guess it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like you do the same thing for your whole life. We're creatures of habit, I don't know. Hopefully, kind of get
So you're
yeah.
Wait, what was that last Pierce?
well.
That
I
last
mean, I think
I didn't hear that last thing that Pierce said. I just wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh,
You said
okay.
we're creatures of habit. You don't care about about um, resisting norms, no matter how prejudiced and exploitative and immoral they are. As long as they're normative behaviors, you don't really care that
No.
much about resisting them.
No, no. That's definitely not the case.
Well, Pierce, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you if you're interested. But because I mean, you obviously are someone who likes to really reflect, and you seem like I assume you probably care about morality, or you wouldn't be having these conversations.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there are also nuances that I think people don't really often think about when they think about ethics, such as the distinction between exploitative harm and non-exploitative harm. They kind of sort of look at harm as just harm. I know the last person you were talking to, Milky, I don't know if he's still here, yeah, Milkman, was failing to make the distinction, and you didn't point it out to them, so I don't think you appreciate the distinction either between an exploitative harm and a non-exploitative harm. which is not the same thing as an unintentional harm. So this would be like the example in the trolley of like pushing someone in front of a train to stop the train versus flipping a switch and having the train go into a sidetrack and kill someone to save 5 people. Whereas when you're pushing someone in front of the train track, you're actually using that person as a means to stopping the train, as opposed to if you derail the train and kill someone on purpose, you're still murdering the guy, but you're not using him as an object. You're not using him as a means to the end. He's a side effect. His death is a side effect of saving the 5, not an actual part, not a means to saving the 5. And I think that's an important distinction that when one reflects upon it, then they start appreciating it, and it actually might lead to them changing their behavior and their moral views. But if they haven't really thought about it, they might equivocate on those two. And that's what I think Milkman was doing. And I don't think
Well,
that you noticed that distinction
if I could,
either. So it's something that we could talk about.
yeah, I think another analogy, in addition, maybe in addition to the trolley problem that you were talking about there, is kind of like we know, like with transportation, with driving our cars, right? We know that there's going to be car accidents, as a result, and even pedestrians might get run over by cars some on accident sometimes, and we've kind of all like agreed that, well, it's kind of worth it for the the aid of the transportation system and stuff. Now maybe we need to fix that, of course, so that it can, these accidents can't happen, and have more public transport, more buses and this kind of thing. So, but nevertheless, we're in a situation where we're just kind of like, but that doesn't make it okay to drive your car onto the sidewalk and mow down pedestrians. Right, so it's an intentional harm, or or a non-intentional harm. That I don't know if that's the same as exploitative harm. I would say so. Yeah, you're exploiting the people on the sidewalk. You're intentionally exploiting them for your own gain, your own pleasure of running over people. As opposed to the other thing of like, it's an accident, harm's gonna come, but at least we're trying to avoid it.
Yeah, Chase. Like that. That's true. Like if you're like actually running over people for pleasure, then yeah, you're exploiting them. But like, I think the reason why, I mean, and I think that's a good example to use. Um, it's just that when you hit someone like on while you're driving, that's an unintentional killing. Versus when you're derailing a train, when you know someone's gonna be hit, or if you're threshing a large crop field and a certain number of animals are going to be killed, then those, you can't really say those are not intentional deaths.
Right.
Or at least they're foreseen deaths. They're not maybe intentional, but they're foreseen.
They're
to use like Thomas Aquinas language.
Sure, but they're necessary at least. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like maybe the transportation deaths that occur on accident are like necessities of us having a transportation system. And the animals who die in the harvesting of crop foods, like plant foods and stuff that we eat, as sad as it is, that's, just another one of those things. But what we're trying to aim for is veganic farming, where that doesn't happen. These vertical farms, like indoor farms, Nick knows about this, indoor farms where the plants, no animals can get inside the buildings to eat up the crops. And so there's no need for pesticide. And when you pull up the crops, no animals die. And that already exists, but we need way more of them. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, and we need to find a way to get fertilizer.
Yeah.
That is going to be also not have casualties, for those crops.
Yeah.
I think another one that kind of reminds me of the example you gave about running over someone outside the street is like if you shoot animals in crop defense as opposed to shooting animals for pleasure, right, or for food.
Yeah, because
you're getting when you're shooting them for pleasure or for food, then you're exploiting them. If you're killing them to defend the crop, then you're not exploiting them. You're defending the crop. It's a defensive kill.
Right, because we have to eat the crops. Like we have to eat plant foods in order to survive, but we don't have to eat animals or animal products. And that's why that is important. Sorry, I know I'm going back on what you said earlier, but like I think that is an important point to make. But
Sure. You bring necessity into it, and that's sort of like the original conversation we're having, and
Sure.
that's complicated thing that we're talking about
Yeah.
before. But I mean, like, even irrespective of necessity, like, even if there isn't any necessity, if you kill an animal in defense of your crop, even if you don't need to do it, that's still a distinction between the exploitative kill,
Yeah.
which would be like for pleasure or for food.
And I would say,
Of course, it's a separate thing, yeah.
yeah. And just to wrap up, like, I agree with you. I think that, killing out of necessity is still immoral, but, I'd probably still do it. But like, my point though is that I think that it would be even more immoral for me to die because I'm an activist for human rights and animal rights, and I can do a lot more good for the world than, a dog or a pig or a deer, right? And so, if it came down to survival so that I could stay alive and help the world in more ways than those animals can, I think it would be immoral for me to violate the rights of those animals because they didn't do nothing wrong, right? But it would be even more immoral for me to allow myself to die because then that's one less serious activist out there. But in any case,
Whether that would be immoral, I think we'd have to have a conversation about
Sure.
that. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting. I mean, that's a whole conversation.
yeah, because another way to frame it is like I think it's moral to keep myself alive, But in any case, yeah, we'll talk about that another time. I want to get 1,000 back up on here. Pierce, can you bring 1,000 back up here? He wanted to ask something, and then we'll probably wrap things up because we've been at it for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, should I step off the stage?
Yeah, if you don't mind, but it was fun talking to you, Nick. You did good up here. I really like you asked some good questions of Pierce. Pierce asked some great questions of you. You could see the different styles in question asking, though. You could definitely see that Nick's an activist and Pierce was more from that neutral. So you can kind of see a little distinction there. Not necessarily saying which is better, but you can see the distinction. But in any case, let's see what 1,000 had to say.
All right, Pierce, it was a pleasure. Take care.
Yep, you too.
I just had a tiny bit criticism for your piece. I felt like you didn't explore as many avenues and stuff regarding when you were talking to Nick. Is all. I don't know if it's because you may slightly agree with your position or I don't, but I felt like more things could have been explored. I forgot the specific ones because it's been quite some time since the conversation passed over those. Unfortunately, trying to remember.
I think I ended up agreeing at the first. I don't think I agreed with them, but after a while, I think I ended up agreeing with this claim more and more. But
Right.
I'm not sure if that was such a factor, as I really didn't know where to go with it. I got stonewalled.
Right. I kind of also felt because maybe you didn't like when I didn't. I'll be very direct. I did not think I'd have to explain what factory farms are. I thought.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a difference. You've not dealt with this subject, and that's why.
Yeah.
Even with your conversation with me, it felt like you were having difficulties trying to, ask questions or go down different avenues. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
ironically,
nothing against you.
Right.
You're used to this subject.
Yeah.
Ironically, I usually when I don't know much about a subject, I do a lot better. But I think a lot of these claims were very, very nuanced and specific. So it's kind of like I needed a little bit of background. But I mean, I kind of had an idea of what factory farms probably was, but I wanted to make sure.
That's it. Other than that, it was a good discussion.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. So yeah, and Pierce, I'll continue talking with you, and send you some links to different information and stuff, whatever you're willing to look at, And but I think everybody did a really great job up here, and thanks to everybody in the audience. Does Pierce, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say that if I could give a little bit of advice to everybody who's listening, with your activism, you know, I want you to remember to don't be Ryan. You know, I gave that example of Ryan and how you know, he got very defensive, very angry, and just started yelling. And I urge you not to do that, because that's likely not going to convince anyone of anything, anyways. But if you treat your interlocutor with kindness and respect, and hear them out, and you know, you obviously can speak your point. Use street epistemology if you want, otherwise don't. But at least you know, be respectful, and don't yell. Be calm. You'll have a better time. I promise you that.
And a lot of times, what I try to do is try to see or help the person discover the better angels of their nature. You know, um, that there's a lot of people who do want to do good, who are already doing good in a lot of ways in their life, and this is just an extension of that.
Right on.
All right, cool. Well, good times. Thanks everybody. Thank you, Pierce, for your wisdom in street epistemology. I hope everybody learned some stuff and might be able to incorporate at least some of it into your activism. And if anybody wants to message me later on, have any questions, or you want to send Pierce a friend request, ask him questions later on, I'm sure he's probably open to it. So yeah, all right, we'll shut it down. I think, Pierce, you're the one that's got that power.
Yep.
All right, cheers, everybody. I think I made myself cry with that last bit. Okay, bye.